Mr. Babyface Kaden Love himself. Look, I've coined it. I've coined the phrase Babyface Kaden because it's true. And for some reason, I think the first time that I got to talk with you, whether it was like through a chat, that's just what came to mind, man. You're a young man, and I'm not so young looking anymore. So it's just me being jealous. That's all it is.
That's exactly it. I know, like, people see me and they're like, "Oh, wow, you look really young and you wrote a book." And
yeah,
I mean, I've been doing some more stuff on TikTok and Instagram, and I mentioned that like a book my wife and I had read in there, and someone's like, "What? You're married?" Some guy's like, "I thought you were like 15."
Well, not only that, dude, like you're a nurse. Like, I mean, I'm not telling you anything, obviously, but like to find that out is really cool, man. It's you remind me of my sister. My sister graduated. She's a nurse, and as young as you could possibly do it, she did that, and then is going for her physician's assistant. But I look up to you guys. I think I'm an intelligent person, but I'm not a test taker, and I'm kind of like I'm just not that kind of. I don't learn or do tests well. I don't study well. I kind of pick and choose what I like to learn about and do it in my free time. So you guys that can do that in a systematic way, man, that's super incredible. Super incredible. But yeah, man, where are you hailing from tonight, and how has your day been?
It's been very, very good. I'm in Salt Lake City, well, Sandy, Utah, but I mean, it's like 10 minutes south of Salt Lake, and most people know Salt Lake. So
yeah,
that's where I am.
It's getting hot, right?
Yeah. So like we had snow on Monday, but it's like going to be like 80 degrees tomorrow. And so, yeah, it's a little nuts.
It's bipolar. I didn't know Utah was so bipolar. So So I got confused for a second. Utah is a state that me and my wife both want. When we hit the lottery or make it big, when we finally get it, we want to, build a house out there and enjoy the stars and go through the mountain ranges. And man, I didn't realize how beautiful it was out there until watching some nature shows. And then another show, I believe it's Diesel Brothers. I don't know why they show nature so much in that show, but just to kind of drive and lose yourself. And I can just imagine sitting in that somewhat of a desolate spot and maybe writing or listening to music, whatever it is that makes you happy. That's the place to do it.
And like you said, it's super nice because we live like a 20-minute drive from a bunch of major ski resorts. And in the winter time, it's perfect. But in the summertime, it's super good for hiking. And like last year, my wife and I drove up just to see a meteor shower, and we didn't get to see the Northern Lights last night. So we're hoping that it shows up again. So we're going to drive up the canyon.
Dude, me and my wife woke up this morning. That's very much something her and I would do, is kind of, if we get a second from the kids to kind of peep out and check that out. We heard nothing, but we don't watch a lot of local television. We watch like streamed movies and YouTube sometimes. We're not huge on TV, but even in Ohio, that's where I am. People have wonderful pictures. I literally heard nothing about it.
Yeah.
Dude, it just popped out of nowhere. All of a sudden, it's like everyone's keeping a secret on the Sorensen family. But hey, I wonder what the reason for that. Do you know the scientific reason for everybody being able to see it?
I don't know. I've heard it's something with the storms recently, but like it's weird because I feel like I hadn't heard about having Northern Lights locally except for like in the last year, and I don't know what the deal is.
Well, we'll have to look more into it. I know I am definitely going to. Let's shout out some wonderful people. Scott was here before we even started because he's just type of dude.
We love Scott.
You break-in fellers, man. You're just really showing us everybody else up. Like you're the standard. Love it. Love and lore. Hi, Scotty. So yeah, and sometimes I don't look at the context of here, but I'm happy to say hi, Scotty, for you, love and lore.
That's actually me. So my wife and I are starting BookTube, and that's the name we chose. So Nope.
So what do you mean? What's the name of the channel gonna be? Like Scotty doesn't know or something?
No. So it's Love and Lore is our thing, but I was just saying hi to Scott.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay. So you're Love and Lore, dude.
Yep.
Come on, give me a second, guys. I'm a little simple sometimes. The hair left, and some of the brain cells did too. Scott says Caden's just out for a casual 18. Yeah, dude. Yeah, man. Scott and I think we get along on so many ways, but we both look up to what you're doing in so many ways. He knows too.
Thanks.
My guy E.L. Montague. Hello from the Peanut Gallery. All right. Let's see here. Oh, my guy, Tim Wolf, can't make this one, but want to show some love. Tim, you always do in the best ways. Thank you for popping in, man. Great dude. He was one of those guys that, much like yourself, Caden, was a supporter from the very beginning. And I got to finally talk with him recently, and it was just such a wonderful conversation. Holla if you hear me. Those who grew up in the 90s will get that reference. John A. Douglas, thank you for being here. Mr. Love from Britain, thank you for being here, brother. And yeah, John is an LPN, so yeah, hail
cool.
turned author.
Yeah, I think I saw him like making a post. I'm like, hey, look, that's cool.
Yeah. I think that it's super. So before, you know a lot of my story, Kate, and we've talked, but before I was like unable to continue with school, I was in nursing school. So any male nurse, breaking stereotypes, being a male nurse, right? Love it. And I think it's probably so rewarding, right?
Yeah, it's a cool experience. I like it a lot.
You get to help people and meet so many kind of people too. So let's start with some questions. We got through the wonderful people that are here. I always kind of start my chats out this way. And I'm anxious to hear it from you. How and when did you find that love or that passion for literature? Well, you're young still, but how old were you when you found that, and how did it happen?
So growing up, I read a lot. I'm trying to think, like the first time I really remember being like super into a book. I mean, if you don't include like Magic Treehouse and random things like that. When the Hobbit movie was coming out, I remember really wanting to read it. And so I read that. And I kind of went on and off reading throughout like my younger grade school years. And I know a lot of people everybody loves Brandon Sanderson, but I grew up reading him as kind of a local author. I mean, he was still big, traditionally published. Hadn't done, like, maybe he did Wave Kings by then, but I read Mistborn towards the end of high school, as well as the first two Stormlight books. And then when I got into college, I read here and there. Like, I have memories of me looking up just like book recommendations, just trying to find things. And eventually I made it back to Stormlight Archive. And I'm not the fastest reader. I really love reading, and honestly, my preferred format is in print. But mostly I do audiobooks. Usually I'll do one print book a month, but I run while listening to books, so I fly through those. And
we relate heavy, dude. Sorry to interrupt you, but we relate heavy on that. Go ahead.
Yeah, and so I started going with when I got to Rhythm of War, the last Stormlight book. That's when I like started basically in cars, going to and from work, things, just not listening to music, only audiobooks. And I've just stuck with that since. And now I always have a book with me. Like usually I'll have an ebook or something of the sort like that, a book in print that I'll take with me to work and things like that, and then audiobooks.
It's as powerful as music is, and look, you're talking to somebody that, look, music saved my life in many different ways, dude. I've been in some dark areas in my life. Thank God I'm out of those. But if it wasn't for music, I may not be here right now. And to say, what I'm getting at is, I will often choose an audiobook over music. That is saying something. It's an impact. And it, for me, it's kind of like, I never, as a young man, discovered the pleasure that I now get through kind of taking these adventures in places that I never knew my mind could go, or how fast the mind could be expanded. Reading Christopher Rocchio is something that was extremely fun for me, and just kind of relating in the way that you said you choose it over music sometimes. That has to be incredibly a passionate feeling to choose it over music.
I feel the same. And especially when I was going through school, that's when I really had time for music. And it honestly, writing now is when I go through music. Mostly ambience, unless I'm in a certain mood. Like sometimes I need some hard rap, or sometimes like I don't know if you know the Who,
Oh,
but
dude, yeah,
like
I know both of them.
yeah, like I need the Who for like really cool battle scenes and things like that. Like it
Like some
just
throat singing.
yeah, it just does something to your writing.
Oh, it's straight up primal, like Mongolian gangster
Uh-huh.
music. Yes, dude, totally agree. And there's just something, again, I'll repeat it, primal about their kind of music that just is perfect for a battle scene. If I'm listening to the
Hmm.
Who, I'm pumped up or I'm being inspired. And I think that you put that in a great way. Like, music was always inspiring for me. So to be inspired to maybe hone in on a battle scene or a love scene or
Hmm.
whatever it be, music is an excellent choice to kind of fall into to gain that inspiration and get those juices flowing.
Hmm. And for like a side project that I've been working on, more so it's going to be like I'm diving into a lot more of like the emotional side. It's going to be single character, and I'll be just thinking about it. And like morning times, I like kind of keeping myself after my run. I'll put on some ambience or just like more relaxed music and just kind of think. And I've gone through in some of my outlines, just being like, okay, insert tranquil emotional scene here, this song, because it's just like it puts me in a mind frame that I want this scene to be written in.
You're
Just
growing as an author. You're
yeah.
growing as somebody who's realizing what helps you through a process, man.
Hmm.
That's what I hear, at least. So you say ambiance music. Could you give me some recommendations? Because I'm very much into what you're saying, but it's
Hmm.
kind of a vague term you're spitting out there. So I'd love to know some recommendations from you.
Yeah. So I mean, kind of stepping back, I used to just listen to like the Game of Thrones soundtrack is one of my favorites ever. Because that's just straight fantasy music. But then I'd look up fantasy ambience. Um, but one that I really like is I love the Minecraft soundtrack.
Okay.
I think that there's so many great things to that. And honestly, what I've really been listening to a lot recently is Adrian Gibson, author of Mushroom Blues.
Yes.
Yeah, he has the album going along with his, but he's also got a playlist with that mingled in there. And I've listened to that and I'll put on a radio based on that because there's sometimes where I would like to hear familiar sounds, but there's sometimes where I just need noise that isn't something I've heard before. So I don't like kind of play along with it in my mind. Um, and for more so, like if we're talking about certain mood, political intrigue, um, court scenes, things like that, dark academia classicals, something that I love listening to as well.
I can picture like those political moments, maybe some intense political moments, having some Andrea Bocelli come on.
Hmm.
Some really intense vocals that make the hair on your arms stand up because it's so beautiful.
Hmm.
But kind of chaotic at the same time, like we know politics are.
Yeah.
Uh, Dude, that's great because I've listened quite a few times through the Lord of the Rings soundtrack. Look, it's incredible. We all know that the violin just brings something to my soul every
Hmm.
single time. So I'm looking forward to going into some of these soundtracks that you just recommended, especially Minecraft, because I never gave that a thought, not once, because I don't play the
Hmm.
game.
Yeah.
Um,
Like I don't know, it's just super peaceful because I played more when I was younger, but honestly, I'll just kind of put ones on there because it's a little electronic, but it's just very peaceful, tranquil. And before I was married, like I had one of those Google Homes in my room, and I tell that to play the Minecraft music for 15 minutes while I fell asleep because it just helped me
nice.
go right out.
Welcome to modern times, guys. I love it, man. It's really cool. I think that I take it. somewhat, I forget about how lucky we are, because to be able to just search something knowing it's going to be there, because look, there's not an original thought or music point or note out there that we won't find. So if we think about it and we search about it, we're going to find it. And so I think that gives a incredible hand up to authors or musicians, anybody in the creative space nowadays. So thanks for touching on that, man. And kind of going back, you said there was a time where you were feeling out, maybe when you started reading Brandon Sanderson, who is local to you, right?
So
how far would you say he is from you?
20 minutes south.
Dude, that's crazy. Yeah.
Yeah.
You guys are going to run into each other at like BP one day, right?
Yeah, like that's the weird thing for me, is that it took a while for people to like recognize how big, like some people locally that don't read fantasy know who he is, just because, you know, he's kind of been this local author, and to think that he's like one of the biggest right now is just crazy. Like, I think
if not the biggest.
Yeah. And I think it first hit me when I first got into watching BookTube and noticing that all these, you know, authors in England that were talking about him. And I was just like, oh, okay, wow, that's big. And then I think his Kickstarter really just set things insane all over the world. So
I joined BookTube shortly after that was no longer available. And as somebody who I haven't really explored my view on Brandon Sanderson yet, because I don't really know why. I don't know. I don't know if I'll be in love with his work as much as other. I hope I am, and I'm probably wrong, because oftentimes when I take those chances, I find that I love it.
Yeah.
Now I read Elantris, and I've heard that that's not necessarily a good judge point for the type of books he writes, but I'm starting Kings,
Way of Kings.
Way of Kings, yes. Very soon. It's quite the intimidating sized book. I just finished Dragon Mage by M.L. Spencer, which is a chunky book, dude. So I'm going to take a few little shorter books, and maybe that might be the one I jump into, and I could be like, dude, Kaden, you were so right, and so many other people. And I hope to have that experience. But so as fantasy is for you, and I know you read sci-fi, so we'll break it into two different questions. So has sci-fi or fantasy always been that main love, or do you kind of read into other genres, or do you kind of stick to those?
I stick pretty strictly to those. Of course, I have an endless TBR, but very much an impulse reader. And I like right now I'm reading Malazan, and I'm really enjoying it. So I'll probably finish at least the first 10 before getting to just reading something in print, which is hard because most of my print reading tends to be indie because there aren't as many audiobooks for them, or I use Libby, like the library app, or like Audible Selects to get a lot when I don't have credits. And so, yeah, I typically, fantasy is my love. I have such a passion for it, but I do love sci-fi. Like my favorite trilogy is the Mistborn trilogy, but I put it right on the same level as Red Rising for me. Just with how much I've enjoyed it. And that's the thing. I don't really know, which is funny. So I have, let me turn right here. This is my main shelf. And then right here, this is right behind my books. This is my sci-fi section. Like, and it just, I never made a conscious choice to do that. And to be fair, a lot of sci-fi books that I've read, like Sun Eater, I've read everything except for Disquiet Gods, did that on audiobook. And so I don't have physicals of that. But I do like classics every now and then. And like every year, my wife and I will do a Halloween book. And so that's like where I did Dracula. We did Graveyard Book 2 years ago, and Russian literature. And we, like, my wife and I did War and Peace together. And so, yeah, I will read anything, but it's typically fantasy. It's just like, those are high up on my lists. Recent one that broke my TBR just because I wanted to read it was Dark Matter by Blake Crouch. And
what'd you think about that?
I loved it. It was one of those where I kind of was going, about halfway in. It was very good, like quick paced, intense, and it kind of felt like I'm like, this is gonna be something kind of cliche, and then it switched it for me.
Oh,
And
nice.
so I had a lot of fun. I thought it was good. And yeah, it was one that was like a quicker read just compared to the other things that I've been
Isn't
reading.
it funny?
But
Like anything other than fantasy to us fantasy readers is pretty quick read, right?
yeah,
It's like those 800 page chunkers are like the normal, or like at least 600, 550, 600 pages. And I can relate. Like my wife is a very much a murder mystery, kind of psychological, twisted type of read, which you wouldn't guess if like you met her.
hmm
But that's the kind of books that she enjoys, and oftentimes she'll talk to me about those, and every now and then I'll dip into one of those kind of books because I enjoy that too. The psychological, I love psychology, so any
hmm
chance to kind of explore that in any way is really fun.
yeah,
But she's read Lonesome Dove, and she's halfway through Streets of Laredo, and dude, like hearing how much she loves Streets of Laredo after hearing how much she loved Lonesome Dove kind
hmm
of gave me a new aspect, because you hear about Lonesome Dove all the time on BookTube,
yeah,
but you don't hear
and
much of book two,
mm-mm,
3, or 4.
mm-mm,
So when she told me how much she related book 2 to book 1, and how like you cannot not read Streets of Laredo, I'm going to do a video on that, because not that I've read it, and I hope to read it soon, because I'm like 25% through Lonesome Dove, and the dialogue just blows my mind. Like
yeah,
nothing can happen, and it's just the best. So yeah, so I guess what the reason I brought it up is getting those influences, because I'm very much a mood reader myself, and uh, if I hear of something, ooh, this is nice and shiny, while I'm halfway through a book, fantasy book, I'll probably pick up that nice and shiny book and dive into it and put something else on hold.
yeah. And I've done that before. Like I think audiobooks are ones that are easy if like I had a hard time getting through Empire of Silence. I like Sun Eater, but it's not my favorite. And
Mhm.
so I stopped that one for a bit and started Dungeon Crawler Carl. And that one I'm completely caught up with. But like that one was just, it was straight like heroin. It was such a fun book.
Yeah, dude, for sure. And I get that. Like Empire of Silence, anything in the Sun Eater is kind of one of those. Uh, it's good. It's good, and you can tell why people just absolutely love it. But there is a time and place for those.
hmm
Like I started book 2, Howling Dark, and I was not in the right place for it. So I'm
Yeah.
not going to put myself through drudging through a book, because I know I'll love it when the time is right. But it is a specific time and place book for sure, or
hmm
series. I totally
Yeah.
agree with that. Um, so I've heard some of your foundational authors, obviously Brandon Sanderson, George R. R. Martin. Can you add to that list at all?
Yeah. So I mean it's hard to say without mentioning Tolkien, Lord of the Rings.
Sure.
But C.S. Lewis is actually one of the biggest for me.
I
Um
love that.
like and not just Narnia, but his other works, just what he does. And I mean he's straight up being allegorical. You know that he is talk relating to the Bible.
Yeah,
And I love when an
I
author
love
has
that.
a purpose. Yeah. And so that one's a very obvious pick for me. But same with Neil Gaiman.
Mm,
He like he's just said in a lot of things, every book has a purpose. People it goes simple as Coraline. It's a weird story, and a lot of people can be turned off because like, oh, it's some creepy weird thing. I don't like it. But he wrote it for kids to kind of overcome their fears and see them as silly. And some of his other works, just I love when authors have a purpose to it. There are definitely stories that I love just because they're entertaining. Like Dungeon Crawler Carl is one of those. Like it is genius on the work of comedy and just pure entertainment. Um,
yeah.
but there are other books that are just more moving, and I think that that's when I tend to kind of step outside of fantasy, um, because it's easier to see in certain books. Like some people are talking about Frankenstein, where Frankenstein is
Mm,
one of those that if you take it for the entertainment value on its own, you're missing the point, because it is a lot about human morality and consequences. And so that's what a lot of Elegy is. Elegy, put a ton of philosophy in there. And I think that that's something that I really look for in books. Those are big, inspiring authors for me. But yes, Sanderson, as far as world building and magic, George R. R. Martin is kind of my go-to with politics and fantasy. I think that people that don't know Game of Thrones, what it is, can kind of give it a bad rap, but it is politics in a medieval era with a little bit of magic.
Yeah.
And as far as indie wise, Zach Argyle, Dreadlight, that book has, I mean, when I read that, I was in the editing stages for my book, and Zach's been an amazing helper for just helping me get adjusted to the world.
Community guy for sure.
Yeah. And so I think that he was really great. Zamil Akhtar is another indie author that I really love, and I try to pull influence kind of from wherever I go. And going into this second book, I have since read all of Joe Abercrombie. I've since read a good amount of Malazan, and definitely taking a ton of prose and writing improvement from Malazan. And my character work in the second book, and even Beast Call right here, is so much better because of what Joe Abercrombie did. And I think it's just a masterclass in character.
Dude. So lots of different points, you know. Joe Abercrombie was one of my very first books. Like the First Law was very influential as far as like kind of boosting me on this adventure that I'm on. And it's so far, it's been he's the only author that's made me like sit up at 3 a.m. when I can't sleep and just laugh, almost wake the whole house up, dude. He just has a way of putting things. It's like, you either get his sense of humor or it's just completely dull to you. I get it, and it just kills me, like belly laughing. So that's something to be thankful for, because also with crying, you know, you don't hear a lot of people that actually shed a tear to a book. Me, I have not found that. And if I do, I will shout about it, because who doesn't want to have that emotional read, right? Something that moves you so incredibly so that you have a response in such drastic way or an emotional way. So I get your Joe Abercrombie. Like, if you want to learn how to write a character, something that through dialogue alone you can tell the character who it is, you know, he's the guy for sure. Now, I'm not as experienced with George R. R. Martin. I've read the first book, Game of Thrones. It's great, and it's wonderful. I have not moved on, not because I don't necessarily want to, but I think if I get to the end and, you know, we don't finish this thing out, not to be that guy that's like, if you don't finish your series, I don't want to read it, because I do. And I think that even if he doesn't finish it, I'll end up reading it. But either way, I like to hear him as an influence, because look, there's probably not many better than that. What is it about Sanderson, though? Kind of two-part question. What is it about Sanderson's writing that's so, well, the reason whether it's captivating, emotional, it's the magic system, world building, profound, vast, whatever it is for you, what is it about his writing that does it for you? And where are you in Malazan?
Okay. Yep. So Sanderson, a lot of it plays on, I don't know if maybe nostalgia, but he is my cozy author. Like I said, I read him when I was younger, and I know a lot of people aren't a big fan of his prose, which is, to be fair, I can definitely see when prose is good, bad, but I'm not too harsh on it. And his has never really had a problem for me, because I guess that is what I grew up, and it's just always been something I've been used to. And so, like, for example, Secret Project 2, The Frugal Wizard's Guide to Medieval England, wasn't a lot of people's favorites. And it wasn't the most like amazing book ever, but it was so great because it was just something that I was used to. And typically he usually has the same narrators, like Michael Kramer and Kate. Those two, especially because I listen to all of Wheel of Time on audiobook, is just something that's always felt comfortable for me. But the detail to world building, I think, is really what got me into just kind of. I think that's what pulled me into writing. Was the cool world, intricate magic systems, and just the interconnectedness, and just he's a constant author. He's one that I respect as a person as well as his work. So I think that's just all for me. He is kind of, just what I want to be as an author.
Ambitious, productive,
Yeah.
inspiring. Yeah, he loves what he's doing. He worked really hard to get to where he is. And I have so much respect for the guy. And honestly, I was going to say earlier, I forgot. I showed up a little late to BookTube, just, natural way of things. I found my love for literature a little after that Kickstarter. But I got to see the influence of it. And then even worse, like the dread, I got to see people opening all of these beautiful Kickstarter books, dude, that I wish that I could have gotten a hold of, because they're great. Like, he does not skimp. He does the right thing, and makes them all that they should be. So that's incredible. I respect that a lot in an author, to do things right. And if you hear his stories, I've watched all of his lectures. Of course, I've got like 2 or 3 books full of notes based off his lectures. And what I enjoy the most, though, is his story. He's working nights at a hotel that, and writing book after book and sending them in. And they're like, be more like George Martin. Like, well, of course, the best freaking fantasy writer out there at the time when he's, sending books in. And to just kind of, he made it, it's inspiring in itself. So, yeah, I love that. Thank you for sharing that. And where are you in Malazan?
Malazan. I just finished the first part of book 4, House of Chains.
So you're into it. Okay.
I'm full into it. I enjoyed book 1. I thought it was interesting, and I really like things that make me think a lot. And I do love a book that I can just coast through. But I think that's why I was kind of drawn towards it. And book 1 and 2 were enjoyable. And I didn't have too much of a hard time reading it. It was more so that it just takes a lot of concentration. I can fly through 1 page of Malazan at the same speed I can 2 in another book. And Memories of Ice, the book after, so book 3, really did it in for me. That's the one where I felt the emotional impact of the big character moments, and things start to piece together, and the history he kind of alludes to. And so that one was just,
your commitment,
it really sold me out. Yeah.
Your commitment into reading 3 books is starting to pay off, which is why I think a lot of people don't pick it up, right? Because in book 3, you're starting to get these rewards. And I think that's great, though, man. I cannot wait to be in that right mind space, because I've started Gardens of the Moon, and I like what I've read. But yeah, sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you, but I could relate with that.
Yeah, and there's a lot of cool depth. I am a sucker for dark fantasy. I just think that there's something cool about it, and there are so many things in that world to explore, and so I'm just enjoying it. I'm having a good time.
I have to say, in many ways, you and I have a lot of the same values and morals, even based off of other things, just with books. And to hear that makes me feel sometimes, because I'm a huge dark fantasy fan, and I think for guys like me who have multiple aspects of my life, that some are where I try to be a good person and do the right thing, it's incredibly intriguing, and well, it helps the knowledge building, or I don't really know, to discover the dark side of things, to understand that thought process, or those elements in life that exist, like many fictitious elements in books, that it's like, okay, this isn't real, but like that feeling, the hate, or the deception, or the lies, or the happiness, or
Mhm.
The considerateness, or if that's a word, if being considerate,
Mhm.
it kind of just translates in so many ways. So I like to read both sides of the spectrum. Um,
Mhm.
so I like to hear that from other people too, because sometimes maybe if I'm in a dark fantasy world, right, I start to feel a little overwhelmed with continuing. So I can't read 4 or 5 consecutive grimdark books, for example, just
Yeah.
because I start to forget why I read it. So I have to kind of go to a lighter prose or a lighter topic. But either way, I enjoy both sides of that spectrum, and I like to hear that from similar-minded people, such as
Mhm.
yourself. So, what was the most? You're young, and doing this young, I think, is great because you're getting that experience. But as a self-published author, what did you find most difficult, or maybe not even difficult, the biggest hurdle to get over, or unexpected hurdle, if you will, about that process of getting a book and self-publishing it?
Mhm. Editing, 100%. Because I think that when someone starts writing and when you have people tell you that what you're doing is good, it is so easy to think that you have a masterpiece, first of all.
Mm.
Um, and my editor made my novel what it is today. Without Sarah Chorn's master skills, it wouldn't have been like it was.
Indie
And
space gangster Sarah Chorn.
yeah, and I think it's so difficult. You have points of self-doubt when you're receiving critique, even though in the end I'm so glad that I did it. It's hard to see those errors that you make, and especially when there's points where something isn't really clear or you need to completely rewrite a whole chapter. It's shattering. So when Sarah was going through editing my book, sometimes I get a chunk sent back that was like, we had one chapter that was just like fixing up some lines, and then there's somewhere it's like, okay, we need to fix something here, and she's completely right. And no matter how like correct an editor is, it's hard to hear
Sure.
because it's a whole vision that you've had in your mind and get that there. And um but the payoff is so great. Like when I sent her Beast Call, she sent it back to me saying, like, there's nothing you really need to change here. Just, it was all line edits. So
That
that
felt
felt,
good.
it was so good. And I think because I can sit down and just write, that's no problem. Drafting is one of my favorite things in the world. That's what I just live for when writing. And going through and seeing mistakes that you've made, it's just recognizing that you're not perfect can be difficult.
Yeah, dude. You know, I have to say, I can relate with this at this moment, because one day I hope to be able to say what you can say, and that I
Hmm.
published a book. I really do. But what I can relate to this is football. I'm 6'5", and in high school I was like 295 pounds, prime weight and height for the NFL. And I
Hmm.
had all of these people kind of pushing me to do that, to go to college, play football. And I didn't know at the moment that I had Crohn's disease, and I just wasn't into it. So
Hmm.
hearing, I guess what I'm trying to relate to is that voice that you hear from, whether it's from an editor or a coach, or to fix something or continue to do something, whether that's positive or negative. There's lots of love and heart and hard work and time and time away from loved ones and sacrifice that you put into these books. And I can relate to that with football. And
Hmm.
whether it's positive or negative, depending on where you want to go, it's hard to hear. And taking that to the chin and saying, I'm going to take that for what it is for me and move
Hmm.
forward, knowing that Sarah obviously wants nothing but success for you, through her editing.
Hmm.
I think taking it the way that you did and kind of digesting that, growing through it, accepting it, and kind of taking her advice for what you sent it to her for, is a huge
Hmm.
step, man. And I think a lot of people who've been writing for years and years and years struggle with that. So to go through that and take it the way and learn from it the way that you have is something worth noting. So I just wanted to congratulate you, man. Bravo on that.
Thank
That's
you.
wonderful, dude, for sure. Jim posted a question a minute ago. Kaden, have you read Name of the Wind or Lies of Locke Lamora?
I have read both. Love them both, and of course, I want Doors of Stone to come out. The third one in King Killer Chronicle, but it's not a book series that I know a lot of people get really mad at Patrick Rothfuss, and he's one that I'm finally, like setting aside the author to enjoy the work. And even if he never writes it, I'm glad that I did. I think that those ones are really great for character, for a lot of attention to detail. His prose is wonderful. And that's one of the books that I've gotten my wife to read, and she loved that one. And particularly Wise Man's Fear. I know a lot of people didn't like that as much, but that one was one of the books that I listened on audiobook, and it feels like an experience. Like, it was so great, just the travels and it was one of my favorite reads. Besides, of course, there's an interesting section that's not my favorite, but I had so much fun with it. Lies of Locke Lamora is one of those books that I would put with like Dungeon Crawler Carl level fun, even though it's like it's a very smart book. And I think a lot of people would be surprised to hear that I'm not a big fan of the heist trope. Yeah, I was so tempted. I actually got an offer from them to do the to join their subscription, but I was like, just not this time. But so much fun, and like I've said, I know that Scott Lynch hasn't finished that series yet, and it's a series that I'm so glad that I've read. It is just one of those joyous books.
It's funny because I was the guy that got on BookTube and saw all these beautiful books being made, and I instantly put my name on that subscription list. I'll always remember I was like, I texted or I emailed them. I said, what number am I? Like, how long? Like number 7,200.
Yeah.
And I finally, this is the very first book I've ever received. So I just made it on the subscription list. It's been one of those things that I've been looking forward to. And to have, I haven't made it all the way through this book yet. So to hear those influences is really cool, man. I'm surprised at at your opinion on Sun Eater in comparison to Malazan. That may be crazy to other people, but to me, I think they have some level of similarity. Am I wrong?
I think they do. And Sun Eater it almost feels like the sci-fi version of Name of the Wind because it's super character focused.
Yeah.
And I think that the thing that I struggle with that in that series are the points when it's a lot of battles. Sci-fi like battles are hit and miss for me, especially sci-fi battles. Like, that's why I think I like the Red Rising original trilogy more than the second one, because spaceship battles aren't my thing. Elegy has some battles in it, but it is so much more of a political novel because that's what I just find myself enjoying more. I think there's a time and place for action, but if it goes too long, my mind just kind of shuts off. And those are the parts where I found myself struggling in Sun Eater. So Ashes of Man was probably my least favorite because there was a lot of ones like that, points like that. And that's why I think Howling Dark or Demon and White's probably my favorite, but Howling Dark had some genius, like mind-bending portions that just, I had so much fun. Those are books that made me think outside of just pure entertainment. They kind of make you think about your life and existence. And that is what I love the series for. And it's just when we get too much into just the battle and action itself that I kind of pull away.
It's like you're reading my mind. I completely relate with that because I have to make it through Howling Dark now because that is what I'm after. That is what I read Christopher Rocchio for, is exactly what you loved about Howling Dark. And
Mhm.
I didn't realize, like, for me as an inexperienced reader still, I found this when I was 29. I turned 34 at the end of this year. It's not been very long where I've been experiencing these tropes or what have you.
Mhm.
So to find an author that really took my mind and like it was Play-Doh and just expanded it to a point that I did not think was possible, because that's what he did, man. With Empire
Mhm.
of Silence, it's just incredible, and even more with the beginning of Howling Dark. It's like
Oh
this
yeah.
isn't a spoiler, like, but like at the end of book one, you're like, okay, he's got his crew together, things are going to start happening, and it's just going to pick right up. No, this dude's been frozen for 50 years, and things have happened that you have to catch on. It's like eh, he writes in a way that there's no way or no choice that the reader has but to constantly kind of catch up.
Mhm.
And I find myself wanting to, though. It's crazy because there's so many aspects to just reading that I never thought was possible. I now understand why people are the way that I'm thinking or you're thinking, and end up just enjoying this reading journey. Um, Belltube, my guy, Brian, what's up, dude?
Mhm.
I love the new models, man. The pink models that are about to hit shelves, dude. Those are sick. Of you know what I'm talking about. The Bell Flask. I remembered,
Mhm.
my man. So super happy for you, dude. You're doing something that I think a lot of people wish they could do. Inventing, creating, being their own boss, hitting that out of the park, my friend. Um,
I love his channel. He's one of the newer ones that's definitely worth checking out. Super
dude,
fun.
he's gaining subscribers at an unrecognizable rate. In
Mhm.
fact, I find myself being jealous because, look, I didn't gain, like, he's passed me like through his like third week on freaking BookTube. But hey, do your thing, man. I'm on your side. I'm on your team always, brother. Um,
Mhm.
let's see. I started some other ones. Jim McCleary, he's a great supporter of mine. He came
Mhm.
up with Fear the Beard. Caden, any advice for us unpublished guys? And let me just say real quick, this is a gentleman that just put everything aside to ask a gentleman much younger than himself for advice. That is a man.
Yeah. I mean, that means so much to me when people ask me things, and it's cool to kind of be at that point where, because I remember Keon Arlodon, the author of the 11th Cycle, was the first indie author I reached out to, and I was blown away that he responded, but he was willing to sit down and do like a 2-hour Zoom call with me, just telling me things. And same with Zamil Akhtar. He gave me feedback on my first chapter in the early days. And I think
Cool.
that's one of the things I love about indie authors is you can really see that they're just people. Um, and it's kind of harder sometimes with trad authors because they have, this business that's kind of doing all this. But everybody out there, authors that are willing to reach out that are willing to help out are just amazing. But simply put, the two things that I think, um, besides just saying, of course, read and write a lot, um, is our man. Let's see if he's still here. I don't know. EC Greaves. He, his,
He's always in the background, my guy.
yeah,
He know,
his technique of writing on his phone, I think, is so smart. Um,
dude.
so because like as a nurse, I'm busy a lot, and so my only real full-on writing days are Wednesdays and Saturdays. Sundays I try to reserve a little more for family, but I try to get some in. And so a lot of times I'll have, maybe an hour or two in the evening, and but I'll have some downtime at work, especially, taking public transportation. And so I think that just setting a strict word count goal that you're going to hit every day. Um, and that's not to say don't get on yourself if you don't hit that. But, if you're at the end of the day and you have nothing done and you've got an hour where you can sit and watch TV or do that, it's something that's going to kind of push you to write more. Because honestly, that is the thing you need to do. If your book isn't ready, just write, get it to people. And then as far as it goes to marketing and things like this, it's just being a friend to people.
Mm,
Like I said, if people want some help, reaching out to them. I mean, like just offering advice like here. And one of the reasons I think I made myself decently known on social media is because I started reading indie fantasy books and talking about how much I love them. Like, I honestly wonder how many copies of Threadlight I've sold for Zach Argyle just because
Dude,
I
yeah.
talk about it so much. And when you boost other people's books, even if you haven't read them, like if you just see someone drop a cool cover or they say something cool, just being able to support others and being a positive influence, being a friend, it'll get you places. And doing that will get you to points where, I mean, if you want to look at it from a marketing perspective, you will have people there to offer help when you need it. And essentially put, don't be afraid to reach out for help. Write, and when you need an answer to a question, just reach out to someone.
Dude, yes, that point I have to echo a million times, because so I've noticed what you've said in the indie community, but I have to say, man, reaching out to guys like Christopher Rocchio, Adrian Tchaikovsky, Raymond E. Frickin' Feist, guys that have come on my channel and just been completely human with me, man, I don't know if there's anything more refreshing than just kind of, you know, looking up to somebody is something I think we all do as humans, but not many of us get to like experience that connection. And I think those of us in the writing space, and you especially starting your booktube channel, you will, dude, like you've seen getting a hold of people as a writer for advice, which is much harder than me getting a hold of an author for an interview, because they're two different things. Like you're looking for advice, you're looking for a little bit of an inside information, you're looking for things that was going to help you, that helped them. When you start reaching out to people for your booktube channel, I promise you that, like, don't let past experiences through you asking for advice hinder you asking for a chance to promote an author, dude. Like, you will find that they're so incredibly enthusiastic, not only to come on your channel, but to be about what you're about. For me, it's like that journey for knowledge, that never-ending journey for me. And I've just never had anybody other than, I would say, maybe one, maybe two, and that's honestly pushing it, that told me flat out no. And then I've reached out to a lot of people, man. So I'm excited for you first and foremost, because you're gonna have such a wonderful experience. That opinion that you just had is gonna change. It's a positive one that you have already, but it's going to change even to be even more positive as you start to reach out to people for your booktube content, dude. I promise. So kind of now we'll get in, and it's reaching. I usually don't reach this at the middle or towards the end of our conversation. I usually get it at the beginning, but I knew that I wanted to hit some points with you first. But tell us about your published work, man. Tell us about Elegy and Beast Call.
Okay, yep. Elegy is a book that, now that I've had like a couple in-person signings, I've kind of been forced to pitch it quickly. I pitch it as a political fantasy with an organ transplant-based magic system. The basis of that is that we have half the population is allowing these children that are being born with a third bowel to grow and experience their life, gaining abilities like those kind of seen in Mistborn. That's an easy way to connect it. The other half is harvesting these organs from these infants to put them into adults to cause society to progress faster, saying like, you know, okay, this can be used in a judge who can see if someone is telling the truth or not. This can be used for someone who can, you know, help with balancing politics. And of course, it gets a lot more complex than that. And that's the face value of it. It definitely kind of, I think that when people read the second book, it's going to flip their mind on what they think it all is really about.
When I found out that it was about having a third bowel, I have to say, I had to interrupt. I'm so sorry.
No, you're
good. To have that, dude, I have Crohn's disease, and they have taken every bit that they possibly could get their hands on, bro. I have an ostomy, like, bro. If that was a real, I just thought that was ironic, so I had to bring it up with you. Let's hope in the future we can find out how to be born with a third bowel, because your boy would be normal.
And that's
anyway, go ahead.
Yeah, and so I work as an endoscopy nurse, so I actually work with
Yeah.
Crohn's patients all the time, and I am very fascinated by the gastrointestinal system and digestion. And
Hmm.
so the original idea came from, okay, what if we had a magic system coming from people who, when they eat food, like let's say someone eats a squash, they
Hmm.
extract, because they have like a specific part in their organs, it extracts the life force that was once there. And
Yeah.
it gets, and then, so that's what deep down in the lore, it is from hyperdigestion that these people get their ability. So we have people that are, like big hulky behemoths, but because, they're not your classic big stupid brute, it's their body are able to digest so much more that it builds their strength and their body bigger as well as their mind. Um, and so that is kind of what I'm going for. There's six, I call them courts. It's easy to say, just like six kingdoms ish.
Hmm.
Each have a specific organization of their government that I think can be a little difficult for people to wrap their head around in the beginning. But they all focus on a certain virtue. One focuses on love over everything. One focuses on the law over everything. Others focus on humility to the point where their economy is rubble because they've given everything they own away.
Yep.
And so that's where I'm able to really work on certain characters. And each one of these three main characters is from a different court. So I get to explore that. And doing so lets me get to their flaws as well. So like if we,
Mm.
Ari right here, the female character,
Yep.
she is a perfectionist, but to the extreme,
Yeah.
where she has become such a cold person. And it's just really fun to, because that was the original idea. The idea of people taking certain virtues, and because they can't see other virtues, it makes them becomes a flaw. And I put a magic system to it, and there came the moral dilemma.
So
So yeah, go ahead.
I was just going to say, I was going to bring up something funny. So I'm doing written reviews now for Before We Go blog. And you want to hear
Hmm.
something really funny? Is
Hmm.
the review I have for Elegy has been postponed based on me having no freaking clue of how to uh, do the review, like WordPress, the actual software. And I learned that yesterday. So I can't wait for you to get that review, man, because it's going to be wonderful. I wanted you to know that.
Thanks. I'm so excited. Yeah, and I think when I explain a lot of it, people might think that it's sci-fi, but then I'm like, it's medieval era. I figured out how, I know organ transplants are usually rejected in the body, but trust me, I know the
Yeah.
science. And that's why a lot of magic is in books. It's to solve problems, and it's right in there with it.
All you need is some prednisone, right? And then most of the time, right? See, I know a little bit of medical. I know a little bit of medical stuff.
Mhm.
John asked a question way up here. He's like, "Okay, I'm going to test you, Kaden. What do we do when we give one? What is it?" He said 1 unit of insulin. I think I
Oh
know the
yeah,
answer. You take their freaking blood sugar
yep. And usually we'll give them a snack.
and give them a freaking snack. All right, there you go, John. I know you asked that at the very beginning, but I just remembered it.
Hmm.
Wonderful, dude. It's cool because uh, I realized how many ways, and I knew you did the endoscopy thing, so I knew that you would kind of relate with the story I had, which makes this even cooler for me. Who doesn't like to talk
Hmm.
about their own situation?
Hmm.
So I think people, based on my opinion, without giving too much of what I promised to be a great review, um, political, uh, unique, um, mind changing. And I'm a medical nerd myself, so like there's some of that in there. And for a debut book, man, it's just, and even if it wasn't a debut book, I'm not saying that to lessen anything. I'm saying even as a book, period, just had a lot of fun, dude. So
Hmm.
I'm really happy for you.
Thanks.
Of course, dude. I haven't read Beast Call yet. I can't wait.
Hmm. Yeah, and like real short, that one, for people that don't know, it is a so it's a prequel novella about a character that is kind of a side character in here that I end up loving. And it's a way I pitch it is that it's like The Witcher, but if Geralt had feelings and could talk to the monsters. So
I don't remember where you put that. What you posted it somewhere with those ideas and stipulations and notes on it, and I was like, you know what? I feel like that works for me because as a guy who read The Witcher, the first book, and I liked it, but I didn't love it, and that was kind of because you don't get a lot from Geralt, right? You don't get a lot from him. He's not a character that gives the reader a whole lot of information. It's you get to it's kind of dry. So him with feelings, that's something that I think I would enjoy.
Yeah, and like Britton says there, Geralt does have feelings. But the reason I say this is because this one we go through a man who was a beast hunter by profession. Just he's a bounty hunter. He was the Geralt. But he later learns to communicate with beasts, and it might sound to some people like an animal rights book, but it's not. It's a man that learns the consequences of who he was. This is kind of changing him, and he learns to kind of hone that. Another way that I've said it, that it's like, what if Ash Ketchum from Pokemon used to be a Pokemon bounty hunter, and then he started catching Pokemon.
Interesting take, and I think that growing up in the 90s, I was born in 90s, so anything Pokemon, bro, I'm right there with that analogy, brother. Dude, gotta catch them all. So quick, I've been enjoying this question, so I kept it on here for you. What does a fantasy book have to have in it? What is your favorite ingredient in a fantasy book?
That's the thing. Like you said, I'm yet to cry in a book, but I need a lot of emotional baggage. I feel like I actively hunt out books that people say are traumatic. And
dude.
I don't mean like explicit. Like there have been books that are a little too much stuff that I won't finish.
Sure.
But like,
impactful.
And it doesn't have. Yeah, it doesn't have to be character deaths necessarily. Some of the twists in Joe Abercrombie's Age of Madness series, just because of what he did, I felt like, just like shouting and jumping like, oh! And one that just packs a punch is Storm of Swords by George R. R. Martin.
I've heard
The Red Wedding, if people know. Like that is, I read all the books before ever seeing the show, and it just blew me away. And I feel like the reason that I really like when it plot twists, we can settle at that. One of my favorite TV shows is The Twilight Zone because it's short stories with a good twist.
Yes,
and
dude.
The reason I like twists is because it shows me after it's happened that I was invested enough to care. So if we get a character that dies and it doesn't mean anything to me, it shows me that like I wasn't built up. Yeah, and I think that there's some big deaths in Malazan, especially book 2 at the end that were like, okay, like sad and all. But there's certain events that happen at the end of Memories of Ice that it was shattering, and I just wanted to stand up and applaud because I'm like, this was masterfully done.
It's cool to hear that Erickson and who's the other author that did
Esmond.
Yeah, Esmond. They kind of like conspired to make that fantasy series, and man, everything that I hear, it's like they did that, and to have that emotional response is something I'm very much after. So, just talking to you, I always like to say if I'm feeling something, I always say it. Getting into Malazan and especially just Malazan and some George R. R. Martin too, and maybe I'll go to the second book because of Kaden and explore that. So looking forward to it, and I think you've convinced me of a couple things. So emotion is definitely a reason. I mean, why else do we read a book? If emotion isn't a part of it, even if it's not the center of why we're reading a specific book, if there's no emotion in it, what the hell are we doing reading it? But also, I was thinking something during what you were just saying that I don't remember, and it'll come back to me through this next question. I have faith. Uh, my brain's mush. Sorry. So emotion, great ingredient and fantasy, of course. Uh, I would have to inject to the Joe Abercrombie example that you gave. So through like Logan Nine Fingers, like anytime that there's a serious situation, even if it's kind of subtle in the big scheme of things, he shows such a profound experience in those type of situations that you just totally believe, whether if
Hmm.
it's sneaking up through a field and somebody hitting the spurs on their boots. It just hits that spot for me, and I think a lot of people too. um all right, Snow says stunted feelings are still feelings, their own. They have their own special hell. The swallowed pain someone makes it worse. Suppressed tears flow in. I think I understand what you're saying for sure. um
Hmm.
yeah, Britton, I would too. I'd like to find a book that makes me cry, but I'm not much of a crier. You're not alone on that. I think us as guys, as men, we kind of toughen ourselves up to not be that, and then all of a sudden, as an adult, we want to be inspired enough to cry.
Hmm.
So we've kind of built ourselves around not doing that. So finding that one will be extremely special. So you've touched a little bit on your writing process. I know you have uh, a word count. Now, do you plot a lot of your points out? Do you leave a lot of it up to creative freedom? How does that look for you?
Hmm. So I usually have um, what I call like a skeleton line out. I'll have the bones there, and I'll fill in between. So like the most recent chapter that I've been writing, without like giving anything away, I had people that are going off to a big battle, and I had another, like I had one person that needed to go a different way, and I kind of let the story flow until the gaps were filled, and then I have the chapter. So as far as book two, I have all of it. I know everything that's going to happen, and I mean, I have probably a fourth left. As far as book three, I have certain events that need to happen, but everything else is going to come in a spur of a moment, because I could sit down and outline everything, but I found that my best writing does come just by little inspirations. Um, Maybe if I really am at a standstill, I'll jump to the next chapter, which is usually a different character perspective, and just start
Mm.
writing there and go back when I feel ready.
Do Gosh, I often get this way at the end of a conversation. So many things are going through my mind. I have something brilliant pop up and it just goes away. Um,
Mhm.
so you have oh, how do you? I hear a lot of authors say that they know what's going to happen at the end of said book. Do
Mhm.
you have it mapped out to where you know the exact number of books you're going to have in the series, which is called
So it's the Paladins of the
Paladins
Harvest,
Paladins of the
which
Heart? Do
I
you know how
don't.
many books?
Mhm. Yeah, so it's a trilogy. Um, and I honestly don't think people remember the name of the series until maybe it's done. I am going to reveal the significance of that probably at the end of book two. Um,
So naturally, they don't know
yeah,
until the era.
yeah, and so it's a trilogy, unless I have one of those things where it's like I'm writing book three and I'm like, this has to go for another one. Um,
Which is
I
possible.
Yeah, it is possible. I'm very open to it. And I've told people that I kind of want to pull a Ryan Cahill and put novellas in between,
Dude,
which
that's a great marketing strategy.
yeah, because it's super fun. And for example, I'm trying to go to a convention later this year, and I think maybe there's a chance I could have book two done by then. If I started writing a novella by now, I could for sure have it out by then. And that's the hard thing. It's I have other project ideas I want to work on, but it's like I need to finish what I'm working on now. Um, and so there's going to be for sure one other novella of one of my favorite younger characters that I kind of want to explore after the story. But like I mentioned earlier, I've got a side project that I'm working on that I'm honestly going to try to just bust my buns, work as hard as I can while book 2 is in the beta reading phase. And I'm going to try to finish off a first draft there, because that one won't be as long, probably, 100K, 90K words, whereas book 2 is going to be probably around 200.
All hail for busting your buns.
Yeah, and that's the thing and there have been authors that really inspire me. Michael Michelle, when he just barely reached Way of the Wizard, and he's got his next book coming out, and I've mentioned, I'm like, dude, doing this has inspired me to work on something else on the side.
He talks about you too. Like when I talk to him in an interview, he brings you up as an example of somebody he mentors.
Mm-hmm. Like he's the one that I basically based my Kickstarter campaign off of his, because he just helped me a ton through it.
That's good to find somebody you relate with and look up to, man, for sure.
Mm-hmm. And then, I mean, we've got my man Z.S. Diamani's pumping out books insanely.
Dude, and they're good.
Yes, they're awesome. And he is one of my favorite, just authors as a guy. He's such an amazing guy.
Veteran.
And he just really inspired me to work hard. So it's seeing people like that are that make me realize, okay, I can set aside another hour and just really do things like that.
And not only that, dude, he is a positive, inspirational, go-getting type of absolutely good-natured, holistic type of guy.
Mm-hmm.
And that itself, man, after seeing what he's probably seen, doing what he's probably done, he's doing what he loves now. He's got a family to take care of. He loves his family, and I'm assuming, much like yourself, there's many aspects in which I relate with Z.S. Diamante. He's a great dude. Mm-hmm. And and he just put out these beautiful he had those hardbacks, but I've been seeing on Instagram that he's got dust covers now, and they're gorgeous. Look, there's nothing unepic about a of course it's gonna evade me. The winged lion, Griffin. Yeah, dude.
Yeah.
A Griffin, come on. How epic can you get? Oh, I love that you brought him up, bro.
Yeah. And because he's in Colorado, and he's coming down to Salt Lake next month, and I'm going to meet up with him and a couple of authors. I'm so excited.
Bro, that's awesome. I didn't know that. That's incredible, man. Mm-hmm. That's going to be such a memorable thing. Take pictures, post them. I can't wait to see that.
For sure. Just that's one of the things that I'm not going to make it to any out-of-state conventions this year, but I'm really hoping to do, I think, Worldcons in Seattle next year. And, I can put behind, be like, oh, marketing things there. But just the fact that I want to meet all these authors that I've had such cool interactions with. My wife and I earlier this year were in London for a layover for literally 8 hours. And I was like, oh, come on, because there's so many authors there, and a bunch that are like, oh, I can't make it. And just, I think that's one of the cool things is wherever you're at in the world, there's a chance you can just meet up with.
By the way, Corey's a veteran too. He knew
that's
that.
So
put
cool.
That out. Yeah, dude, Corey, bro, I've had his book on ebook for a while. I never got to it for a while. He sent me his hardback, which is gorgeous. Holy shoot, dude!
And he does his sprayed edges too. They're so sick.
Yeah, dude. And I think he's a great example of maybe starting out as an author. You don't necessarily know exactly what you need for a cover, and then reinventing yourself, bro. He is that example. He's doing wonderful. Yeah. Corey, my guy, I'm just pumped for you, man, because you deserve it. You're a veteran. You deserve that thing. Lots of respect. Okay, we got through writing processes. I love that. So you officially, or you've just applied for SPFBO 10, Spiff Box?
I made it today, so I won the coin flip, and
yes.
There's some amazing authors out there that just, didn't luck out and get it. But I was so thrilled. And it was funny. So I was talking to Sam Paisley today too. And he's actually
Elements of Time.
Yeah. And he's on a trip right now. And he said that his wife almost crashed his car because he yelled out when he found out that he got into it. And I was in here with my wife, and I shouted out, I'm like, I made it, even though like she doesn't really understand what it is, but
I have
like
to
I
say
don't know.
that. So what happened to be a coin toss? Explain. I know there's 300 spots open. What happened for there to be a coin toss?
So it's just there were 595, so pretty much half the people made it.
Yeah.
And so especially, I mean, we've got the break-ins. We were so pumped. We all were probably applied within the first like 5 minutes, which was a big change to last year where it was, 41 minutes, all the slots were filled, and that was it.
That was it. Yeah.
But this year, is just a full day. And so it was just completely random. Mark did say that, they'll have to go through and make sure everyone's eligible. And so if there's some that aren't eligible, some will make it in. But
and there are a bunch of rules, professional editing, stuff like that, professional, I don't know all of them, of course, but I've heard of authors, unfortunately, being disqualified due to certain rules. So I'm sure there will be some. So those who didn't necessarily make it right there in the cusp, keep your eyes and ears open because your chance could come up.
And so, I'm just super pumped to see where it is. And, to make it as a finalist would be amazing. But I think it's going to be so cool to just have my book. I mean, whenever my book is read, it makes me happy. That's the reason I write, And
there's binding, there's a cover art, there's a back, there's a book. Man, you put that together. That's heart and soul, of course.
And so, and I was looking, I didn't know anyone except for one. I'd had like one interaction with them in my group. So it'll just be cool to, go and reach out to these authors. And of course, we all want to win it, but it's such a big positive experience. And I know from hearing some of like the finalists from the one that just ended, like what a cool friendship they all built going through it. And
I was just about to say, dude, E.C. Greaves is constantly talking about this wonderful experience he had just because of the people he met and are friends with now. Morgan Stang, Myrtle at Spindle Manor, right? One,
that was one. And that's the thing, I don't know anything about that book, but now it's it's on my TBR and I'll check it out. And
dude, I can't wait to read it because it kind of hits that point that I want to relate with my wife. And there's a murder, and there has to be some sort of like this questionable path or journey you'll go on that isn't necessarily typical for fantasy, I think. So I'm excited to read that one. Morgan Stang, congratulations. That's incredible. Out of 300 books, one of 300, you won. Pat yourself on the back. Go take yourself for an ice cream. Of course. Go to Dairy Queen, get you that extra large, like Reese's Blizzard with chocolate ice cream. You never guess what I would get, right?
Yeah, never. But it's so cool too because I don't think I read any of the finalists, but I'd read a bunch of other ones that were just awesome. And
how hard that judgment must be.
Yeah. And you look back at past years where you have like winners like Sword of Kaigen, which is blown up. But then you have Combat Codes, Senlin Ascends, both weren't winners, and they're now big trad books.
Dude, here's a wonderful example of exactly what you're talking about, my guy.
Oh, yes. Exactly.
Justin Anderson. Another one, The Gray Bastards, Jonathan French.
And there's just a bunch that I want to check out, like Orconomics just looks cool. I don't know what it is, but I want to read it.
I have to say, and I told Mark this when I talked to him, another example of a traditional published author who never talks to people, that just gave me all sorts of love that I had on my channel. It's like he felt in his heart that creating Spiffbo, like, he's not necessarily one of those guys that's super emotional, but I do think that he knew the quality in the indie space, if you will, to create something like Spiffbo. And that's super cool. And What I was going to say is when I first started interviewing people, when I knew that that's what I wanted to do to take myself seriously, to talk to people like you,
Hmm.
that was my list. Like going through those who were in Spiff Bout, man. That's what I caught on. That's what I learned. That's where um, I found my love and how I took myself seriously. So, guys like EC Greaves and um, gosh, so many. I can't. There's so many that is just bogging my mind down right now.
Hmm.
So yeah, it's incredible, man, and congrats to getting in there. I hope you do, and I expect that you'll do very, very, very well. Of
Thank you.
course, man. So what are you reading right now?
So right now, House of Chains, Malzahn. And I don't know if Mr. Brian Bell from BellTube's still here. I saw his post when he had like in case of uh viewer emergency, break glass, and it had the One Piece
Yeah,
first volume. I'm reading One Piece. I'm maybe 2/3 of the way through it, loving that to death. So that's my ebook read. I'm also reading Sam Paisley's book, and that is the I'm getting through it slowly because One Piece keeps distracting me.
and it's
Um,
huge.
yeah, it's awesome. Like it has some awesome moments where you just kind of feel the nostalgia of being a teenager while having epic fantasy moments. Really well written. And then I just started. Speaking of emotional baggage, I heard that Robin Hobb is the queen of trauma. So I started Assassin's Apprentice like 2 days ago,
My
and I'm
dude.
really liking that on audio.
So back when I very first started this channel, like you learn all the gangsters of fantasy and sci-fi, and I kind of bought all those, right? And I have them on my shelf, but now not even close to have read them all. But I
Hmm.
bought the illustrated version of Assassin's Apprentice, so maybe I'll start that soon.
Hmm.
It's beautiful, and I've heard that she is just ruthless.
Hmm. So I'm hoping for it, and I I do know that people say she's a slow burn, which
Yeah,
I can get behind every now and then, and
me
it's been
too.
good.
I like a slow burn that like straight off the rip. You can see there's things being set up. There's time being taken. Like if I'm getting to know a character, or if I'm getting to experience a world and realizing how profound it's going to be, um,
Hmm.
honestly, that keeps my attention. And a slow burn is often something I can understand. So you get through a book like Empire of Silence, and it's lots of things happening, lots of characters in and out with lots of different histories and lores
Hmm.
and stuff like that. So again, there's a time and place for that. So there's a time and place also for those slower burns that I can truly get into without feeling like I have to work to understand what the hell's going on.
Yeah.
Awesome, man. So I love that you're reading. Maybe one day I'll get into One Piece. I'm not a graphic novel kind of guy. At least I think that. Not that I've ever tried one.
Uh-huh.
Maybe one day I'll try it. There's so much on my plate right now as a new fantasy and sci-fi reader that I'm gonna wait.
Hmm.
Uh, so well, if I ever hit those, you'll be the first I talk to about them because I've been
Yes.
I watch your TikToks, man. I don't post a lot on TikToks, but I watch yours.
Uh-huh.
On both your on the channels that you do, both of them.
Yeah.
So that's great, man. I love what you're doing. Really
Thanks.
respect it. Um, so kind of touch on a little bit what's coming up for you, like kind of what's next, even if you've kind of covered it already. So what are you working on and what's next for you? And that's kind of all I had for you tonight, man. You've covered a lot.
Cool. Yeah. So Duet of Pernicious Eels is book two, in Paladins of the Harvest series. That one is slated for a hopeful December, more probable January. And I think that I'll be able to finish the first draft next month. And then it's all about pumping out editing. And then while that is in the beta reader phase, and while I'm kind of waiting for edits when I get it back to um, Sarah, I plan on writing. I'll just talk about it real quick. I've mentioned it
Yeah.
to some other people. It's going to be called Tooth Sucker. It's a think
I
of
like that.
yeah, think of Tooth Fairy, but there's a reason they harvest teeth. It's a
Yes.
vampire that needs teeth rather than blood, and it's a heavy. I don't know how heavy. It's going to be very inspired by Dark Souls, so a lot of big epic monsters,
Ooh, that's
darker
all you had to
tone.
say, bro.
Yeah. And I haven't read Berserk. That one has some things that I don't really want to get into a lot, but
Dude,
the
yes.
lore of it has inspired this a lot. I really love kind of a Job character, one that
Yeah,
has so much harshness, but comes to that. And it's first person and single point of view. So that's why it's going to be shorter, but I plan on making this longer series, shorter books. And I'm dipping my toes into romance for my wife mostly. So it's going to have
dude.
a little bit of romance
Yes.
there.
So look, I just said this on a I think it was Scott last night. It's like, as a human, as a man, I am 100% comfortable with stating that as a part of the human process, we have the emotion of love, and part of that in finding your future, whether it's a partner or a wife, whatever it ends up being for you, part of that is being a romantic person. I cannot hate on a romance. In fact, unless it's the only thing that novel is about, I'm digging it because I can
Hmm.
deal with some romance. Not only can I deal with it, but I'll embrace it, dude.
Yeah.
Um, no shame at all, none. So
Yeah. And I think we can
totally
get good ones. Like that's one of the things I loved, kind of the slow burn romance in Mistborn that people see if they get there. And yeah, I think it's a good thing that can add a lot of character depth. And like I said,
yeah.
my wife really, that's kind of how I sell her on certain books. She needs a little bit of romance there.
I
And
get it.
how happy she will be with me is if I depend if I decide to make it a tragedy or a good romance.
Love it, man. What's even
Mhm.
cooler is you know who you're with, you know what you married, and that's extremely
Mhm.
absent in today's world. So respect what you're doing. I respect what you're about. You keep that chin up and you do what you do, man.
Mhm.
Um, Future interviewees that you think I should have on, even if I've already had them on, I fully expect to have everybody I've had on once to come on multiple times.
Oh, let me see. Of course, there's always the dream. I think that Joe Abercrombie would make a perfect guest.
Dude,
Um,
yes.
and let me. I'm just like looking at my. Have you had S.A. Kloffenstein on your
Yes.
channel? Okay, yep, he's a really cool one.
He's a
Um,
slick dude.
yeah, I don't know. I feel like you've hit everyone, so I'll definitely have to think of
Throw
some.
it at me in a message, because I don't ask for the viewers as far as viewers go in the end of my interviews. I ask for me. So
Yeah.
you think of some people, man, throw them at me. Illustrators, editors. I'm going to be talking to some audiobook narrators soon.
Mm-hmm.
When I say I'm after the pursuit of knowledge, I truly mean that. Writing's incredible to me, but every part of that publishing aspect is very intriguing to me. And I want to continue to learn about, whether it's the audiobooks, whether it's the paperbacks, what goes into the difference between paperback and hardcover. I'm all about it. So yeah, throw them at me if you ever
Mm-hmm.
think of them. Um,
Um, one that I don't know how easy it would be to get a hold of him, but we were talking about Dungeon Crawler Carl. Matt Dinneman, I think would be really cool. And audiobook narrator. Like, have you listened to Dungeon Crawler Carl?
Dude, yes.
Okay, if you could get Jeff Hayes, like I don't know what that guy does, but that is the most entertaining I've ever been listening to an audiobook.
I've gotten a hold of Matt. We're in the works of some things. Jeff Hayes, I'm going to reach out to because you want that.
Yeah, that would be really cool. Um, but yeah, I'm
Awesome.
excited to see what you got on your channel. Oh, and then like one more other thing, I
Hmm.
guess that I'm working on is yeah, people can see Love and Lore. My wife and I are doing BookTube. Just more so, kind of more fun for ourselves. But it's like if everyone has their niche, she's my illustrator, I'm the author, and I'm much more of a darker fantasy. She likes more romance. So we're kind of going at that thing with each other.
So do you do love and symbol or and word?
And symbol. So like
Okay.
I think it's the thing that you've tagged me in below is like love underscore and word underscore lore, but like the channel's just ampersand the symbol. So we'll see where that goes. Like it's honestly just kind of more for ourselves to have fun. So the first video, maybe uploaded tonight or tomorrow. It's just me talking about how I got her into fantasy. And then the next one, she's going to be judging book covers because she's an illustrator.
Yeah, dude. Awesome. I love that aspect. I'm going to put that at the bottom real quick. Love and lore, go subscribe. I'm going to. I tagged you, but I didn't realize that was like a new channel for you. So that's incredible, man. Keep doing your thing. I love that.
Mm-hmm.
And if you ever want a guest, man, hit your boy.
Oh, yes. Oh, yes.
Kaden, this has kind of been one of those like long time coming interviews. We had to reschedule for a lot of different reasons. Dude, so happy to finally have you on. Obviously this journey I'm on coincides with the journey you're on, and I absolutely plan on having you back. I have some cool ideas in the suitcase, if you will. So keep doing what you're doing, man. I think you're inspiring so many people, many more people than I think you realize. So follow that dream, keep working hard, and you've got a fan in me and so many others. Thanks for coming on Beard of Darkness book reviews. Let's see, who do I have next, man?
Oh, yeah, I love this.
Who do I have next?
That was exciting.
So on the 14th, so Tuesday, a dude that kind of just like popped out of nowhere that has really made a huge influence on me, and I'm loving his book. It's called Saint Elspeth. Wick Welker. He's a medical doctor. He's an ICU doctor. And he wrote a First Contact sci-fi, and it's super awesome. So I will be talking with him on the 14th. Jonathan Weiss, who...
Oh, yes. Yes, I didn't realize you haven't had him. He's awesome guy.
Yeah, so he'll be on the 15th. But you don't have to remember that. I got your back. I will post it on my Twitter. Those of you who don't follow me on Twitter, do so. That's where I post everything. That is absolutely my #1 social media. I do have a Discord. Hopefully the link below doesn't expire. I often change it to a non-expiring link, but it expires for some reason. If you have any troubles, get a hold of me in my DMs on Twitter. So, Kaden, thank you so much, man. Tell your wife thank you for letting me borrowing you. I know I stole you for 1 hour and 33 minutes. So thank her very much. And Kaden, you have a wonderful night, man. And for all of you that caught this and were chatting live, thank you so much. And all of you that will catch it on the replay, respect. Thank you so much. We'll see you soon. Later, guys.